There's the lighthouse.
I guess we could just stop here if you wanted to, or we could drive down further.
Let's drive down further. Okay. And there's the beach.
Sunglasses. It's getting bright.
Welcome to part 2 of our Umpqua Lighthouse trip. We were able to go for a walk on the beach. We haven't been able to do that in several years. It's always enjoyable to be out on the Oregon coast. It's one of Sonia's favorite places to be. It was nice. The weatherman was saying it was going to rain all week, but we had some pretty good weather. Can't really see it very well, but we're looking back at the lighthouse. The lighthouse we drove by on the way to the beach. Stay tuned for another episode. We'll get a tour of the lighthouse. Then we decided to explore a little bit of Winchester Bay. Kind of a neat little area, but we did come in here on the off season. It was the third week of March while we were here. We wanted to beat the crowds that show up during spring break from school, so we came a week before. One of those things on trips like this, we drove out here by these stores, and the restaurant we're passing there on the right, it was open. But the ice cream shop, the fudge store, the gift store, all of these were closed. My guess is they'll probably open sometime in April, maybe. I almost guarantee they'll be open Memorial Day to Labor Day at least. But kind of a neat little shop area right next to the water. Lots of boats to see. Some really big boats too. Some commercial fishing vessels as well. And then, of course, we drove out to one of the jetties. The area of this jetty, there's actually two arms of it that are parking areas for overnight camping in your RV if you want to come down and be right on the water. There's actually 2 or maybe even 3 arms on the jetty like this that are RV parking areas. This was section D, I believe. And doesn't look like there's any hookups for your RV, but you are right there on the water. Each spot had a park bench, table, and barbecue pit. And it wasn't very expensive for each night. So we stayed there in the state park campground. Umpqua Triangle Oysters. We were kind of hoping to go in and see what all they have there. You can kind of see out there in the ocean, the south arm of the jetty, they actually made a big triangle, hence the name Umpqua Triangle. You can kind of see it better in this shot. And they actually grow oysters out there in that triangle. We were kind of hoping to see what else they had in the store besides oysters, but unfortunately the day we were down there, it was closed. Guess that's the bummer of being there in the off season. And right off the state park campground is a trailhead that drops you down onto the river trail loop, and the loop goes all the way around the lake. It's Lake Marie. It was a neat hike, enjoyable hike. Being there as early in the year as we were, things were still a little bit wet, and there were some areas of the trail that were really muddy and soupy and had to be careful walking around them, but for the most part the trail was solid and cleared and well-maintained trail. Was surprising being a lake trail. Most of the time we have been around lakes like that, you're basically at the water level the whole way around. This one wasn't that way. There's a lot of things we had to stop and look at on the way. This tree that was growing over an old stump was one of those. It's really neat how the roots of the new tree growing on the stump come down the sides of the stump. It actually looked something like out of a movie. It's really neat to see things like that. And being the Oregon coast, it's a very wet environment. The bushes and trees and everything grow quite well over there. And at times you could not even see the lake as you were going around it. And this trail, it definitely had elevation changes as you went around the lake. And you can see here some of the mucky, soupy, muddy spots we had to traverse. But all in all, it was a nice trip around the lake. I like to fish. Didn't say I was good at it, just said I like to do it. And I did some checking in the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and Lake Marie is stocked a couple times a year with trout, and reported to also have largemouth bass in it. So after the walk around the lake, I brought my fishing pole down and tried my hand at fishing. Did not get a single bite. Tried a couple different locations while I was there. And also while I was down there, there was at least two groups of, I believe, locals that were out there fishing. And everybody was saying the same thing, that they weren't getting a bite. Nobody caught anything while I was down there. One of the groups had given up and left shortly after I arrived and was fishing. And the other group was still down trying, but they hadn't had a bite or caught anything in about an hour and a half that I was down there fishing. But it is a nice lake. It does have limited beach access. As we get close to the end of the trail here, there is actually a nice beach area that is right next to the road going to the lighthouse, and it's actually accessible to day use. You don't have to camp at the state park to get access to the lake. And had I brought my inflatable canoe or kayak, I think getting access to different areas of the lake might have had better success in actually catching fish. It was a new lake to me, so it was a whole new adventure, and still fun to get your line wet and at least try to catch fish, even if you don't. We enjoyed our walk around the lake, and I'm really glad that the weather held out for us and we had a couple of really nice days. Again, the weatherman was saying it was supposed to be raining all week, and we showed up on a Monday and the weather wasn't too bad. And then Tuesday, it was blue sky and sunshine all day long, and it was supposed to be cloudy and rainy, so can't complain about that at all. Once we got home, Sonia looked at our past record, and we show that we were back here in 2003. So it's been 20 years since we've been here. I think we need to make a point to come back a lot sooner than 20 years, Lord willing. Had a few improved areas like this around the lake. It's nice to have the bench there if you wanted to just sit down and take a rest while you're walking around the lake. Of course, the time we were there, it's still wet enough that that bench was very wet, and we chose not to rest there. And then another spot here that they had improved access down to the lake. If you had a kayak or canoe, you could probably get down here fairly easy with it and launch from here if the beach area was too crowded. And here's that beach area that I was talking about. Quite a few picnic benches and picnic tables along the area here from where that trail continues off into the trees. There's several places if you brought a picnic lunch and just wanted to use the day use area, you could. This is also a swimming area as well. But stay tuned and we'll go through that lighthouse later. Thanks for being here.